and welcome back to part 6 of this character creation tutorial series. In a very short amount of time we've actually come quite a way. So let's take a look. There are a few little things that I want to still add. I think the last part that we really need to add to this block out is here with the head, just the helmet and the ears. We also have in the design, if you look at it once again, this cape here with the ring. Yeah, we might do something simple there as well, but not in this part. Maybe that's for the next part. Okay, let's get started. So for the helmet, what I'll do is I'll again, let's see, what kind of shape do we have here? I'll start with cylinder, not a cylinder, a circle. This time I will pick 16 vertices instead of 8, just to give myself a little bit more to work with. So anything's fine in object mode or whatever, just move it up, give it that little rotation here, and we might want to also tilt it back a little bit like this. Now it's going to be a bit tricky, this part, because the references don't quite line up, as you can see. So this part is definitely a lot lower than what I have drawn here. So we need to find a little bit of a compromise, but I trust the front view a lot more compared to the side view, so I'm only going to use the side view as a reference for like the depth, so the y-axis only. So it's really quite far away from this line, but just ignore it. I don't think it is too accurate in this case. So this is the first step, and let's see. Alright, let's do a copy, and we will now do the other line. So we can just try to rotate it this way. I just press R to rotate it. If you press R twice, just press it 2 times, then you can also rotate it from the view a little bit like this. I'm just making it a little bit flatter towards the camera, and then we just have to line it up a little bit better like this. So yeah, that should give us these 2 lines first of all. It would be nice if these points lined up, so should we maybe so I'll try to look at it from flat on to the surface, and if I can, I'll rotate it a little bit in this direction, just on both sides, to bring this point a little bit closer to the second ring that we're trying to intersect it with. Let's see if that changed anything about... Yeah, it's pretty much the same. So that's fine, and this one is also kind of offset, so I'll try to also rotate it to sort of bring these points a little bit closer to this intersection point. That will make it easier for us to connect these rings together. Yep, that's nice. And then we can just go ahead and merge these 2 points by using the M shortcut. Press the M key and merge at center. Then also do the same thing on this side with these 2 points at center. Now I really hope this works out. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just experimenting myself with this, but I'm pretty sure it will, so don't worry about it. So what I did now is I selected these 3 points, I pressed Shift S and set the cursor to selected. That will put this 3D cursor right in the center of these 3 points. This is because this circle seems to be, you know, a little bit offset towards this direction. Roughly in here I now want to create another circle. So Shift A in edit mode, add a circle. I will use 16, seems a bit too much. Let's start with 8 and we'll increase that as we go. I'll make it smaller. Now we first start by rotating it up a little bit, and it seems like this part is a little bit, you know, stretched like this. It's not entirely circular. And from here on I just press R twice and I try to Actually, let's just go into perspective and do it just by looking at the shapes. I think so. It goes a bit further up. It's quite large actually. Something like this, maybe. And then it seems like it's a bit too far to the front, so we might have to, you know, push it back a little bit so that these lines once again sort of are, you know, close to one another. Here they're a bit more distant, here a bit, they're a bit to the front, so I might go ahead and rotate it a bit like this. So all these lines are, you know, roughly in the same region. Doesn't need to be perfect, but do this as good as you can, while making sure that the front view still sort of lines up. Also push these out just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of variation, so that it's not too constructed. And I think I'll subdivide it here as well. So select the entire ring, right click, subdivide, and we can try to give it a smoothness here, but that's not going to solve the entire thing. You can also use relax here one more time, that will make it smooth again. So I'm doing this because we need a way to connect these eventually, and the points aren't really in the right spot, so let's see. Yeah, that should be good enough, you know. Just trying to make sure that none of them are too far apart from one another, because eventually we'll have to merge these together here. Is that good enough? I hope. Alright, so then I think we can delete these points now. But maybe before we do that, we could subdivide this here just to have this point in place, roughly, you know, it's not connected or anything, but just have it where we need it. But that will make it difficult to line these up. Maybe we do the same thing here. We just subdivide this as well and bring this a bit closer, just to keep the number of points similar on these. It's a tricky part, but I think we can, let's see. Yeah, I have an idea actually. So in the back, of course, this is not going to be having this cross. Instead, let's delete this part. Okay, this is going to be quite a change, but I'll try to make it flat now. So this is the part, I think this is where the modeling approach that I'm taking is going to feel a bit more complicated. But I'm basically working on the edges. I want to trace the 3D object in 3D with my mesh, just the major landmarks that we need to hit. Because the surface in between is basically just going to be interpolation between these lines, and that's fairly easy to do with the right tools, but the shape is mostly defined with these edges. So just by looking from various angles, comparing it to our references, we have to figure this out. So I'm going to connect now these 2 points with F and subdivide it again by right-clicking and using the subdivide. The smooth option was still on here, and you can also add more subdivisions like this, but you see it's not going to be very straight, so I'm just going to select quite a large part of this and use the relax feature here and space and relax, just repeatedly click them. That will make the whole chain a bit smoother. We can maybe just do this on the entire part. Yeah, that just helps us have a more smooth flow of points. Just click these a couple of times if you can. And so what I was trying to do was, okay, so we have here the pole, so to say, and now on the opposite side I'll choose a point, kind of between here would be ideal, but let's count quickly. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, was it the same? Sorry, I have to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, so the center is right in between those two. So let's actually just go ahead and add a center between them. It's going to be this. And I'll use spacing one more time to space these out evenly. And this is now going to be the opposite side of that. And so that means that all these other... can I mark this somehow? No, I don't think so. But basically I want this here to flow from here to here. So I'm going to do this by rotating this part, but you see if you start to rotate it, you'll also lose the alignment of this part here. It's a bit inconvenient. So what we could do here in this situation is to hit the period key and use active element. You'll see that when you select things in Blender, one of your last selection will have a different color. And the thing you select last is your active selection. So in this case, I'll select all these points and make sure that I select this point last. Now I can rotate this without moving this point. So I'm going to align it here. We actually are going to change the flow here later as well, so that it's not all coming to one pole, but you'll see what I'm going to do. It's a bit of a tricky part, I have to admit that. It's not too easy, but maybe it's an opportunity for you to see how I go about solving these kind of challenging issues. So let's see. Let's just connect this up quickly, subdivide it. Let's give it 2, 3 subdivisions. We'll adjust the number of subdivisions as well later. You can do these things. I use smooth, relax and spacing one more time. Now we should be able to kind of fill this. It's not going to look too smooth in the beginning, and probably also not going to line up completely, but let's just start filling it in and we'll see the issues and misalignments that we'll get. So in this case it worked out just fine. Let's delete this point though. Let's connect the next part. Let's connect these 4 first, then we'll continue to fill this in. So here you see, for example, here in this edge loop there's 1 point less. So I'm just going to anywhere in this line add 1 more point, select this entire chain, and use the space feature in the loop tools that we activated from the plugins in the previous part. And then you get a quite even spacing here. Then let's try the same thing with the last side. And that actually lined up pretty well. Alright, so with that now in place, let's try something here. I'm just going to select all these rings and I'll subdivide them with the smooth feature that should bring things roughly into the right place. And I'm just going to select one of the rings now. You can also do the same thing here by going to select loops, edge rings, get all these rings here. I'm going to relax them, space them, relax them, space them. And there we go. We have some sort of cover here. Now this still doesn't look too good, of course. First of all, I don't like how all these points come together here in the back. So what I'll do is I'll just select these points here, delete them. Then I will extrude these ones up here and connect these points down here with the flow that comes across. Let's extrude these 3 points one more time. We can switch back to median point as the origin for transformations, and soon we should be able to not yet, I guess we have to do one more step, and now we should be able to just connect it up like this. This gives us a bit of a nicer topology, and we'll have to fix the shape again, but the topology is nice now. Now, I think the biggest issue is that this is not looking like a sphere at all anymore at this point. So we can fix that. Let's just go back to object mode. I'll add a new sphere. An icosphere should be just fine. I'll increase the subdivisions a little bit, just make it smooth. 5 should be fine. Now let's move it to where the head is and try to bring it to the right size for the helmet. This is basically the side that we want to go for. And now what I can do is, let's see, I would prefer if we don't have to change this ring too much. Let's go ahead. I'm now back in this mesh that we've been creating. Let's separate this ring to a separate object. So now this ring is separate from this kind of thing on the head and the sphere. Now I'm just going to select this mesh that we have been making, go to the modifiers, add a shrink wrap modifier, go here to the target, and now select the icosphere that we have created. Now what this does is it kind of fits the points to this sphere. You can also go ahead and hit outside surface and give this a little bit of an offset so that you can see it better. And I checked this last icon here so that in edit mode we can see the result. Now what I want you to do is go to the sculpt mode. Okay, this is a little bit of an extra trick here, but sculpt mode is of course the mode where you can sculpt, and there's one particular feature that's very useful in modeling, which is slide relax. Click on slide relax down here in the sculpt mode, and then hold shift, and while holding shift, brush on the mesh. This will help relax the position of your points and just, you know, make a more even distribution. And we have to do this in a couple of iterations. So do this a couple of times on the entire mesh. It shouldn't affect your edges too much. So just hold shift and click over it with this tool. Then, however, just look, it still has some issues here. For one, do one quick thing just to ensure that the algorithm works fine. In edit mode, select everything and hit Shift N to recalculate normals. You can't see a difference, but if you had some broken data here, this will fix it. And now I'm back in sculpt mode. And the next thing we need to do is go to the modifiers, duplicate this modifier, and apply this upper one. Now we have to still a copy of the same modifier here, and we do the hold relaxing. So go to this tool, hold shift, and relax these points a little bit more. And next time you go to edit mode, you will realize that these points are now placed a lot cleaner and a lot nicer, and just looks a lot better. Now we can just go ahead, apply this modifier one last time, and basically we don't need this sphere anymore, but for now I'll just hide it because we might do this strategy one more time. Now this video is getting a bit long because it's a bit of a tricky object to get right, but I think next what we have to do is just to connect the ring now, and I'm going to try to align this a little bit better here. Get the ring sort of onto the surface. It's not going to line up perfectly, but we'll try to do this as good as we can. Something like this should be good enough. And then with this object selected, I'll just go ahead and delete this ring quickly, or should we? Yeah, let's just go ahead and do that. Then in object mode, select this ring first, then the cap, and with Control J, I'll join them together. Then I start here at the bottom, create a face with these 4 points that are close together, and just join them all together. And you'll see, of course, again, that there's a little bit of a misalignment. In this case, the ring here has too few points, it seems. So I can go ahead and, yeah, we don't need these points. Oh, actually we do. Okay, let's see. So I'm just going to go ahead and maybe add 2 subdivisions here and here. Select it all, hit spacing to sort of space them out evenly again. Then we'll try again, and if we're lucky, then yeah, that was exactly the right number. And ideally we go now back to sculpt mode, and again with this tool hold shift and brush over this a little bit. This time don't overdo it because we don't have the modifier here anymore to sort of fix up the general shape. So just do that a little bit, brush on it lightly. Then we can fix a little bit of this curve if there's any issues. And there we go, I think this is the rough shape. I'm just going to inflate it a little bit by selecting everything and pressing Alt S. and from here on we would just, you know, try to model the eye. So I'm just going to extrude this part, scale it down a little bit, and we'll have to think in more detail about what this part is going to look like. But we can, you know, rough it in for now. Just give it a little bit of a interesting shape, whatever it is for you. Yeah, something like this should be good enough. I mean, it's just, as I mentioned, a rough version of what we'll have in future. Actually, let's just let's delete this part again, extrude this and scale it to 0, so S and then 0, then I'll move it out. I won't join these together just yet, so there's now a bunch of points in the same place. Before, I'll go ahead and add here 2 loops, use Alt S to inflate. Oh, and here you see a thing that happens sometimes. If this kind of thing happens, this means that your normals are pointing in the wrong direction. So in this case, you have to select everything one more time, hit Shift N, and then it should be fixed. So now you can select them and they'll go into the right same direction if you hit Alt S to inflate. And then finally, in the very end, I'll just select this point, delete it once, select the ring, and hit F to fill it evenly. This is not very accurate in the end, I believe, but it's a good starting point. Again, that's the whole purpose, so give it a little bit of thickness here. Another thing we could try very quickly before ending this part is let's try to select this lower part that should be sort of flat. This part doesn't need too much curvature, I mean, doesn't need to be sort of bent like that. You can use the flatten tool here, but I don't like it so strong, so I'm just going to do it a little bit and return this a little bit upwards to where it used to be. So now this is a little bit cleaner as well. I really like these loop tools, as I mentioned already a couple of times. Don't forget that these are an add-on that is already included in Blender, so you only need to activate it in your settings to use that if you missed that in the previous parts. But yeah, that should be more or less it. Wow, this part is already getting a bit long. We still have the horns left, but I think I'll leave these and the ears for the next part. We also have to do probably a little bit an indication for the hair. But yes, here we are, one step closer to finishing our rough version of this character. I hope you're enjoying everything so far. This was probably by far the most difficult part. Feel free to experiment a little bit with the way you're making it. I'm pretty sure that after you see this, you might be able to come up with some more efficient ways to do this. Me doing this obviously for the first time now. This particular design, there's a couple of things I couldn't have really anticipated and I had to try. Maybe if I was to do this again, I would take a slightly different approach. Now that I know that I want to, you know, use this as a pole and go around, I didn't really know that. I had to figure that out first. But anyway, here's a little bit of information for you to learn. So we'll see in the next part where we're going to take this, but for now it looks pretty good. So good luck with everything. Again, share your progress and your questions and your answers in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.